Hi, my name is Noel Bell. This is going to be a podcast on transformation from betrayal. And joining me is the fantastic Dr. Debi Silber, founder of the PBT Institute and leader in betrayal recovery. Uh, Debbie, so good to have you on. You're in the West Coast, in the golden state of California. How are you today?
Great. Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation.
So, Debbie, you have done quite a bit of stuff on social media, and you know, there's a lot of you out there, and I was struck that you've personally disclosed some of your own personal experience of
Mhm.
betrayal and how you transformed from that. So I guess the focus of what we'll talk about is what I was struck with was when something like betrayal happens, someone who had felt safe
Mhm.
and secure and connected and everything was hunky-dory, they almost, you talk about someone that betrays, that they take the mask off, then you feel
Mhm.
abandoned, and someone who's left feeling betrayed just is left asking themselves, how can this have happened when I had such a strong connection? So I guess what we'll talk about, and whatever you're comfortable sharing your personal experience,
Mhm. Mhm.
then what motivated you to seek concentrating on this particular area? What your
Mhm.
research has informed you around as you say, the systematic approach
Mhm.
to healing,
Uh-huh.
and and we'll just go from there. We'll just see, how to get unstuck, and maybe how some people remain stuck. So that will be the focus of what we're talking about. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds great. And I'm happy to get started.
Great.
Yeah,
So, do you want to just give me a little bit of your personal training history? I think you've got
sure.
some transpersonal experience, and then how the institute came to how it
Mhm.
came to be founded, and your own personal motivation around working
Absolutely.
on this particular area. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm in business 34 years, health, mindset, personal development. I had a painful betrayal from my family. I thought I did all I needed to do to heal from that. And then it happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. That was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house, looked at the two experiences, thinking what's similar to these two, of course, me, but what else? And I realized I never really took my own needs seriously. Boundaries were always getting crossed. And I'm one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I couldn't find, usually I would go to books or courses or mentors to help me through something, and I couldn't find anything. So this was so big that I needed to sort of study it so big. So four kids, six dogs, a thriving business, and I found myself enrolling in a PhD program. Not what many people would do right after a betrayal, but I just felt so intuitively guided, and it was in transpersonal psychology. I was interested in learning how the mind works, why we do these things, and how we can heal. And while I was there, I did a study, and I studied betrayal. And honestly, I just studied it to help me, to help my kids, to help my clients. And but I remember going through that program thinking, if I can figure out a way through this, if I can heal from this, I'm taking everybody with me. It was just a knowing. And so I did the study on betrayal, and it led to three discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life. And I'm happy to share the discoveries if you want to hear them and how it led to the PBT Institute and everything else.
Yes. Just before we get on to that, Debbie,
Yeah.
I and I'm sure you work with people. I work
Mm-hmm.
with people who are probably a bit stuck, and they're trying to get over the hurt.
Uh-huh.
The hurt of being betrayed is
Yeah.
like an open wound that they're
Mm-hmm.
carrying around.
Yeah.
And And they'll take that from relationship to relationship. It's almost like a shadow that they carry around because a
Mhm.
lot of the hurt hasn't healed
Yeah.
and there's like an ongoing wound. So,
Hmm.
from your own personal experience, something must have happened
Hmm.
where you got to the point where you could forgive and then you stayed in your relationship, right?
Well, first of all, I founded National Forgiveness Day, September 1st. So I'm a big believer in forgiveness, but it has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with us. You mentioned Stuck. I just wrote on Stuck, and this is actually in pre release right now. It's for practitioners. And this is such a common thing with betrayal. And that's because we think we've all been taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. Until and unless we intentionally and deliberately move through it, it does follow us around in our work, in our health, in our relationships. So those people that are so stuck, and they, you may see them and they present as being very resistant, or why is it they just can't move on? And it's because the most well-meaning, incredible coaches and practitioners haven't been exposed to the 5 stages of betrayal recovery. So they're using great tools, but at the wrong stage of their recovery. And when someone understands the stages and how betrayal is a different type of trauma that needs a different way to heal, and the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, and I'm happy to share all of that, they understand, oh, it's not that the client is stuck, it's that I've been treating them with tools and resources at the wrong stage for the wrong thing. And when we understand how different of an experience betrayal is, it's a game changer. That's where the three discoveries come into place, and I'm happy to talk more about them.
Yeah, sure. So do
Yeah.
you want to go there now?
Sure. So the first discovery was that betrayal is a different type of trauma that needs a different way to heal. I'd been through death of a loved one, I'd been through disease, and I was like, you know what? Betrayal feels different for me. I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my
Yeah.
study participants. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas, does it feel different for you? Unanimously, they said it's so different. And here's why: because it feels so intentional, we
Mm.
take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered: rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. The invitation after, let's say, losing a loved one, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost, life will never be the same. The intention is to rebuild your life. With betrayal, not only do you have to rebuild your life, you have to rebuild the self. Very different experience. So let's say post-traumatic growth, for example, that's originally what I was studying, kind of the invitation to rebuild your life. But with betrayal, you're rebuilding your life and yourself. So I coined a new term, post betrayal transformation, PBT, because it's very, very different. Now, the best therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, they've been taught trauma is trauma. No, it's not.
Mm.
No, it's not. So when we treat betrayal as a regular type of trauma, and I'm not saying which is better, which is worse, they all stink. But when we talk
Mm.
about betrayal, if we are not focusing on that shattering of the self, the shattering of the identity, the shattering of the different aspects of trust, we're missing the boat with helping people heal. One of the biggest reasons why people get stuck. So that was the first discovery. Want me to go on to the second one?
Yes, yes, sure. We can review the three discoveries. But do you want to outline? Yeah, continue outlining the second and the third. Yep.
Sure. Okay. So the second one was that there's actually this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's now known as post-betrayal syndrome. Now, we've tested over 100,000 people to see to what extent they're struggling. And what's so interesting, as I said earlier, we've been taught time heals all wounds, but it's not true. There's a question on the assessment that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm never trusting again. My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. Feels like it happened yesterday. So we know we can't count on time. We can't even count on a new relationship to heal it. Like, for example, and I'm happy to share some of the statistics. We had a woman in our program. She was in her mid 80s. She had a 70 plus year betrayal, and it was a 70 plus year digestive issue. 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue of some kind. Well, it turns out she was adopted. They didn't tell her. So for 70 plus years, you can imagine the therapy, the protocol, the medicines, the supplements, the foods, the all the things. 2 weeks in our program, she healed from a 70-plus year digestive issue. That's because she was healing the root cause. So it's very common for people to have these symptoms until they deliberately move through the betrayal. And I can share those symptoms, or we can move on to the third discovery, whatever works best.
Um, since you've left the three, let's just outline the third one.
Sure. The third was the most exciting, personally. And what we learned was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post betrayal syndrome, to this completely rebuilt place where we've rebuilt our lives and ourselves, we will move through 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we learned what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage, and what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. And happy to share the stages, and it's what I wrote all about in Unstuck. It's all that I teach. But when the most well-meaning and incredible coaches and practitioners understand those stages, they see exactly why and where their client is stuck. And it's most typically in stage 3.
So, Debbie, are you saying then that someone who is seeking help,
Mm-hmm.
unless they enter these predictive stages of
Mm-hmm.
transformation, that they will stay stuck unless they enter these predictive stages?
They are in the stages. Once they've been betrayed, they are in the stages, but they will stop most often at stage 3. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. And most people stay in stage 3. That's where they have continued symptoms of post betrayal syndrome. They have repeat betrayals. They stay sick, sad, stuck. They feel it's as good as it gets. They're seeing a therapist for years, possibly. They're in some lame support group that's keeping them stuck. They're sabotaging they're healing because they're afraid to outgrow their betrayer. There are so many things consistent with stage 3. But when someone is in stage 3, and unfortunately, the longer they're there, the harder it seems to leave. And they've built this functional life in stage 3. And for them, because it's infinitely better than the shock and trauma of where they just came from, they think it's good. And then they get reinforcement from other people. Oh, you're doing, you seem to be doing so much better. You're doing great. And it's actually reinforcing this functional, they're surviving, but they're not thriving, this stage 3 space. And it's such a great disservice for the practitioner and for the client, because this is often where the work ends. And first of all, from a business perspective, you're letting that client and that patient go before the most beautiful transformative work, and they don't have the benefit of experiencing that transformation. But again, when we know the language of each stage, when we know what it looks like, when we know what to look for, like a classic stage 3 phrase is, I'm fine.
Mm.
And the truth is, they have no idea what they could be in stages 4 and 5. This is why when people know the 5 stages, they say, oh, okay, so I've built this functional life, and I see why I do it, and it serves, although it's functional, but it's flat. I've closed myself off from the love, the connection, the intimacy. 67% of everybody betrayed does that. They put the big wall, up. So they keep out the bad ones, but they keep out the good ones too. And they're not willing to risk that level of vulnerability. Again, they don't have to rebuild trust. They don't have to be vulnerable. They are safe, but it's stage 3.
So this program that you offer is
Mm-hmm.
all about those who have been betrayed. What about the people who betray?
Mm-hmm. We had actually, it was so successful, our program for the betrayed. And we had so many people saying, do you have anything for the betrayer? So we did start a program for them as well. And because what would happen is the betrayed would move through the 5 stages. And then from that place, they would either outgrow the betrayer, or it just wasn't a match anymore. So then we started working with the betrayers, So this way, if they are willing to become someone they're proud of, do the work to change, know how to support the betrayed, they can meet up at a very different level. And it's that's a 2.0 relationship. And in fact, to close the loop on my story, healing and rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move along. That's what I did with my family. It wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you can rebuild something entirely new with the person who hurt you. And that's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as two completely transformed people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids as our bridal party. I never would have done that if I didn't move through stage 5. And for sure, if he didn't transform, it becomes a very different experience. But to answer your question, we were helping lots of clients move through the stages, but then I realized the best way to get the 5 stages into as many hands as possible is through our certification program, because for every coach, for every practitioner, for every therapist, counselor, HR executive that's certified, they can help everybody within their care and reach. So we
Mm.
actually closed that down, the membership aspect, just so we could focus on the certification.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of people like I've read Esther Perel, who talks
Mm-hmm.
about the need to get in touch with the motivation that the
Mm-hmm.
one who betrays,
Yep.
who has an affair, essentially, a non-ethical affair, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
because what we're talking about is it's not like having an open relationship. This is cheating and this is lying, so you're
Mm-hmm.
going into the non-ethical
Yes,
open relationship. And
definitely.
some of the stuff she says is what people are doing is they're dialoguing with the part
Mm-hmm.
of them that wants to go to the fun part of town, the neon
Mm-hmm.
lights.
Mm-hmm.
And who wouldn't want that, which is the kind of excitement, um, libidinal energy that comes from newness, excitement, and adrenaline is flowing. But that if someone can capture that
Mm-hmm.
and bring it into their existing relationship,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no need for the sort of projection of into an affair.
Well, sure. I mean, I've worked with so many betrayers, and they've said over and over again, it had nothing to do with my partner. This is someone's unhealed trauma. This is someone's sense of entitlement. This is someone's ego, whatever it is. And now, for sure, there are betrayers who just they're on to the next and they're not the least bit concerned about this. But for the ones who have shattered the heart and trust of the person that they love the most and loves them the most, it's a gigantic wake up call. And then there's a lot you can do with that. Not that you need to, but there's tremendous potential if you do. And but this is what I see, what I used to see as well so often, where the a few things. So the betrayer learns their greatest lesson in life off of shattering the heart and
Mm,
trust of the very person they love the most. And so now they've had their big wake up call, but look at what they had to do, or look what they chose to do. I also want to be super clear. It's not a mistake. It's a choice. Let's be clear. It's a choice, because the betrayed could have had that same choice. And maybe they decided to work on themselves or do personal development or whatever it was to feed that lack that was
yeah,
internal. So, it's when we look at it that way, there's always a choice, always. And then again, it could just be that the relationship ran its course, and this is the way to end the relationship. I mean, there are so many reasons, but this is something that I really work on with the coaches and practitioners, because they so elegantly help the betrayed and the betrayer move through these 5 stages.
yeah. And the if there are, because I think I read somewhere when you on the website about
Mm-hmm.
if you're dealing with narcissistic or sociopathics, are you they're not going to have that type. Maybe they're
No.
outliers, but they're maybe not the norm, but they're not ones who are going to have a lot of guilt, right?
Right. At this point in their current level of consciousness where they are, you have very little to work with, because they're just going to be shaming and blaming you and not taking any responsibility for their actions. So you could bang your head against the wall and hope to convince them to take a look at themselves, but if they're unwilling, you're really you're missing, there's really very little to work with. So the idea is move yourself through the 5 stages. That has nothing to do with the other person. And this is why people always say to me too, do I stay? Do I go? What do I do? What do I do? And I always say, get yourself through to stage 5. Because whatever decision you make, it'll be from a place of strength and clarity versus scarcity and fear. Because when you're in stage 3, you only have access to stage 3 thoughts and stage 3
Mm.
decisions. So you're best off taking that energy, instead of focusing on the other person, focus on yourself, move yourself through the stages. And now, you may make the same decision that you would have made, maybe not, but either way, it's coming from a place of strength.
Yeah. And also, I've just written here that, obviously trauma is the setup for transformation.
Mm-hmm.
We, the problem is not ending up here, but staying there. Now, you can swing to greatness and heal
Mm-hmm.
from betrayal. And that means loving again. But uh, how, I guess, maybe outlining a bit more what full transformation is, because what I've seen is a lot of people will do quite a bit of work on healing, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't quite ever get, even if they reconcile with the person who
Mm-hmm.
betrayed them, there's still always that niggling, insecure thought that is, if they're away at a conference, if
Well,
they're
then that's not healed. That's not healed
right.
then. That's stage 3. So they could do a tremendous amount of work, but if it's the work that was meant for stage 4 and 5 or meant for stage 2 and they're in stage 3, it's a complete mismatch. And so they could have access to the most beautiful tools, but you need those tools at a certain time. Each stage showed what people need physically, mentally, and emotionally at that stage to move to the next stage. So
Yeah.
unknowingly, and rightly so, people are going to try all these different things if they do. But if you could choose 20 ingredients from your cabinet to
Mm,
make something, but if those aren't the right ingredients you need to make what it is you're trying to make, it's not going to work.
yeah.
So it's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of effort. It's a lack of the right tools for the right stage.
Yeah.
Like here's another example. People with trust, right? Because you just mentioned an issue with trust. One of like this is a classic thing that a lot of coaches and practitioners, as I'm certifying them, they come in with and they say, "Oh, well, I'm helping them trust again in a low stakes situation." Sounds good, right? Well, the whole meter and the whole assessment of discerning if someone is trustworthy, right, is we have our own system that we've created. If they do all these things consistently over time, we can discern this person is trustworthy. So when that person then shatters trust, we look at our measurement system as fundamentally flawed.
Mm,
So when the idea to rebuild trust is, well, trust in that, let's see if we could trust in that person. How do we even trust our own sense of discernment? So it's backwards, you see. So we need to,
mm.
because betrayal shatters self-trust, our trust in our own judgment. If we don't build that back, of course we'll never trust the person again. Trusting in the betrayer is one of the last places we need to rebuild that trust.
Yeah. You use the analogy of a tornado coming that decimates your house.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, what does, where is resilience and transformation? Because it's not a new boiler, right? Or a new roof.
You saw my TEDx talk. Do you have post betrayal syndrome? So here's this analogy, and it's we see it when through this analogy. So resilience, I look at resilience as restoring, bringing back to its original form. Trauma and transformation is a whole different thing. So let's take that old house. Let's say the house needs a boiler and you get a boiler. That would be resilience. Or let's say it needs a new roof. You get a new roof. That's resilience. You're restoring it. Well, here's betrayal and trauma and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels the house. A new boiler's not fixing it and a new roof's not fixing it. And here's the thing, you have every right to stand there, at the lot where your house once stood and say, this is the most horrible thing that's ever happened. You'd be completely correct. And you can call over everybody you know and say, isn't this terrible? They'd all agree. And you can mourn and cry and tell your story until your last breath. However, if you choose to rebuild the house, you don't have to, but if you choose to, why would you build the same one? There's nothing there. Why not give it everything the old house didn't have? That's transformation. That's stages 4 and 5.
But would you not potentially build a bigger wall?
You could, but that's such a you're giving the betrayer so much more power than they deserve. It's like, let's say you love cooking and you get burned on the stove. That's like saying, I'm never cooking again. That's not fair to you. If you love cooking, you need to learn how to approach the stove cautiously, carefully. But then when you do, now you get to cook maybe the most magnificent dishes that you never even thought of before.
Mm.
With betrayal, when you're rebuilding, you're not completely abandoning yourself. You're taking all the parts you love and you're leaving behind everything that no longer serves. It's like, let's say in the past, your boundaries, you didn't have boundaries, or
Mm.
maybe you just settled, or maybe you didn't express your needs. Well, when it comes to rebuilding, that doesn't happen anymore. A boundary gets crossed, you stop it right there. There's a need that's not being met, you stop it right there. And this is where I've had a saying for the 34 years I've been in business, and it works for just about every topic. And it's hard now, easy later.
Mm.
Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's one of those two. When it comes to betrayal, it's hard now, easy
Yeah.
later. And by hard now, I mean when that thought comes in your head, when you're about to say, oh, whatever. No, 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 no. No. You stop and you're
Yeah.
like, you know what? You don't even have to agree with it. You just have to go along with it because this is what I need. This version I'm creating needs this. And that's why the rebuild is very different. It's like you're dating again
Mm.
because now you're being very honest about who you are, what you need, what you settled for, what no longer is working for you. That old version of you is dead. That old relationship is dead. So if you're going to rebuild something different, it's based on this version of you want to become. A lot of people are too afraid to do that.
Yeah. I like that. It's is it already BT? The get feel better, get worse, feel worse, get better. Have you heard that one?
No, no.
So basically all the quick fixes are feel better now, but you'll get worse. But if you feel worse now by really doing the
That's
transformative
it.
work, it might
Mm-hmm.
suck a bit, but you will get better because
Yeah.
it is more resilience. Debbie, just as we wrap up, if someone is approaching you for help, is there a typical kind of patient or client, not sure which language you like, route or cycle or path of transformation, or does it vary from person to person with the people you work with?
We work with now through our certification. We have two tracks. It's to become a certified PBT post betrayal transformation coach or practitioner. It's the same training, but based on someone's licensure, based on someone's, their credentials. It's just a different title, but it's all about the 5 stages because this wasn't taught in
Mm,
therapy training, in coaching schools, in
mm,
university curriculums yet.
mm.
So all we're doing is teaching the 5 stages. And the whole idea is it just makes your great work better because now you understand from the languaging, oh, this is a stage 2 client. They can't handle mindset work. They need nervous system regulation,
Yeah.
right? Or wherever they are, you know the language, you know what they need. You have all the tools and resources because we give you everything so that you can effectively, efficiently move that client through the transformation.
And your certification programs are accredited by whoever?
We have for ICF, International Coach Federation, we're one of their accredited providers. Yeah,
Right.
and we even for people we tested it in 3 different countries because other countries don't have access to this information. We're global, but in Vietnam, Kenya, and the Middle East, our programs have been translated, and we have one of our certified coaches representing PBT, and they're the exclusive representatives of PBT in those areas, so that they can, according to the culture and the customs of those areas, work with people according to our programs, our 5 stages. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, is there anyone who wants to contact you? They know where to go,
Well, they can go to the PBT as in post betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com.
and all information is there with your contact details. Final word, anything we've chatted about, is there anything you wanted me to ask you that I didn't, or anything you'd want to volunteer?
Yeah, I would just say I know how much betrayal hurts. I've been there. But if you have to say this 1,000 times, it's worth it. And it's even though it happened to you, it's not about you. It's not about you. And you owe it to yourself to move through the stages. You didn't go through all of that just to be stuck in stage 3. There's nothing that I didn't do, that all of my certified coaches didn't do, that all of our thousands of clients haven't done in moving through the stages. It's not according to any sort of ability that someone else doesn't have. It's just moving through those stages.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, great to chat, Debbie. I wish you all the best with your continuing work and your publications. And thank you for the chat.
Thank you so much.